Welcome to Turtle Talk. This is Morgan's story and the family's journey. I'm Craig, and
Hi, Michelle. Welcome.
welcome back, everybody. Just like the last episode, we're going to be going more in depth with some of the legal stuff, a little bit of timeline, of course, the frustrations, and yeah. So where we left off was the other passenger's mom met them at the first hospital, and now you're all headed down to the ICU.
Right. And through this whole process, it just felt like the police were super aggressive against all three of the kids, even though one of them was the driver. You know, what was going on? Were you enlisting help? That was the other question that came up that we were kind of surprised at is were the kids calling for other people to run interference on the chase or to help them get away? And we're like, well, what does that matter, right? Like, you were behind them the whole time.
Right.
There was no other car interference, but things just didn't make sense. It was always like we had more questions than answers to anything. Like, why would they do this and why would they do that? So of course, the answers aren't going to come for quite a while on any of this. But we did learn, quite a few things. Found out that they ran them down a dead end road and the kids crashed at the end of the road and the truck barrel rolled. They were all ejected. You know, we did find out shortly thereafter that one of the officers called a superior or somebody and said, I think I'm in trouble because this happened. And that really stops and makes you think, like, whoa. But we'll get more into that as we progress later on with the case. So during this time, though, they're requesting information. The attorneys are. We do our intent to sue, and there's all these weird rules around, who you can sue and why and for what, and so I think we put everybody on notice. Everybody who was involved that night got put on notice that, hey, something's coming. We just don't know which layer of the onion's going to get it. Right. So then, mind you, I'm still working for the city at my job. Granted, now I'm kind of taking a little leave here, but so I'm working for them. So then the whole dynamic of employer employee completely changes because now we have lawyers surrounding us. So it was never a outright blatant, hey, we want to get rid of you. But it was little things and backdoor stuff. So I always felt very uncomfortable and that I was under such scrutiny at my job when I was able to go to my job. Because remember, we're kind of trying to spend some time at home and spend some time at the hospital, and it's kind of a back and forth thing. And so I'm on pins and needles there. I'm on pins and needles going into the same town where all these officers are headquartered out of, right? And never knowing if I'm just going to get pulled over for some BS reason.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it's like we were the pariah because how dare we file a lawsuit? And there were people that actually came up and said, how dare you even do that? Why are you going after the cops? And it was like, well, because my daughter's fighting for her life, trying to live because of everyone's judgment in this. She and the other passenger were innocent in this. They couldn't get out. They weren't the ones driving. They weren't the ones who ran. They weren't the ones chasing.
Right.
There were two people. In my opinion, in my mind forever, there were two people who caused this. The officer that chased them and the driver.
Right.
They took away all of Morgan's choices. All of them. With their decisions, they took away all of her choices. And I've had people come back and say, well, you know, she could have just not gotten on the vehicle with him that night. And I just sit there and I think, oh, okay, so when your child leaves the house to go hang out with a friend and it ends like this, your child should have never left the house to begin with to go out with their friends like they did every other Saturday night, Friday night.
Right.
Yeah, she had free will. She had free choice. Everything was fine until there were some really bad decisions made by two people. And now she's going to pay for it the rest of her life. Same with the other passenger. He's going to pay for it the rest of his life. Because this police officer and that driver took away all their choices. So I get very angry and frustrated when people say stupid things like that. Because it is stupid.
Yeah.
Saying stuff like that. Like, that's very insensitive.
How are you going to protect the future?
Right.
I mean,
right.
If I could, I'd go back and invest in Apple and Microsoft and Amazon.
Right.
If we could go back and change.
If we could go back. I'd give anything to go back. I'd give anything to go back and ground her so she couldn't go do this.
Right. She did nothing
But we
wrong.
can't.
No.
We can't. And she did nothing wrong that night. Neither did the other passenger.
Right.
Wrong place, wrong time, horrific situation. And details kept coming out. We have all this going on, and now we transfer to the rehab center. And of course, we don't know who's coming, when and where or why, what their intentions are. We have attorneys, but sometimes they just don't listen. People don't listen.
Right.
As we found out in the ICU, that highway patrolman kept coming at us, even though we said we have an attorney.
Yeah.
So when we get to the rehab center, of course, we have to say, hey, there's all this baggage coming with us. Nobody is allowed to talk to us or Morgan unless it's through our attorney if they're outside of this facility.
Right.
So people in the facility, they can all do their jobs and everything, but nobody from the outside is allowed in. And nobody's allowed to give out the fact that she's even here.
Okay.
Right? We have to protect her. We have to protect ourselves. So then you're really scrutinizing, like, this is huge. No matter how you look at it, this is a huge situation. And we don't know who we can trust. Are the officers sending undercover investigators? Are we sending undercover investigators? Are you friend or foe? Like, every new person we meet, we're guarded. We're guarded the whole time. And to keep this guard up for months and months and months on end is horrible. It's a horrible feeling. And then our attorneys tell us, you don't talk to anybody, you don't disclose information that we give you because it could jeopardize the case. And we don't want anything to jeopardize protecting Morgan.
Right.
Right? And we had an episode with a family member. We told them something and it got repeated out into the community. And our investigator found out. And then it came back onto us saying, keep your mouth shut. So at that point, it was a lonesome place to be. The legal world is a very lonesome place. But in the end, it was all about Morgan, right? And as this information is coming in and the attorneys are sharing it with us, you get to read the dispatch logs and you get to read depositions. And everything in the legal world is very cold and impersonal.
Impersonal.
Yeah, impersonal.
Black and white.
Black and white. And you're reading depositions of people, and we learn really fast. And I think this stands true in life all over. you're going to read a document, you're going to read a text message, you're going to read an email in the mindset that you're in that moment. Maybe not the mindset that it was wrote in or intended, but in your mindset. So some things that maybe were innocent in my mind blew out of proportion, or in my husband's mind, or we took offense to something. Which is why I hate that piece of life. Text messages are very impersonal. They're just have a conversation. But in the legal world, you can't do that. So we're reading these depositions, and I'm trying not to put my emotion onto this, but it's really hard when their answers are very cold and very blunt and very harsh. And it's wow. Wow. And you realize that this is my child and this is her life that we're talking about. And to all these other people, she's just a statistic,
A number.
a number. That was hard. That was very hard. Some of the things, I remember in one of the depositions, they'd asked one of the officers, would you make this choice again? Oh yeah. Like, it was so nonchalant, so sure, I'd make it again. Even though the result was this? Yes. And then that to us was very gut wrenching, because it's like,
It's your daughter's life.
this is my daughter's life, one. And two, are you really that disconnected from emotion or from reason? Are you disconnected from the reality of, this is what happened? For every action, there's a reaction. Here we are.
When you're getting the information, how often are you meeting with the lawyers? Is it a weekly thing, or is it as information comes, you get meetings?
As information was coming, everything we did was over the phone because they were so far away.
Sure.
And, so meetings just didn't really happen. Everything was phone calls, and they'd email us what their latest information was. And then we'd have another phone conversation and talk about it. And, and we couldn't really sound off to anybody. So one of their employees at the firm became my sounding board, because I can't talk to anybody because we don't want this information out, and we need to protect the case, and we need to protect Morgan. And Tom and I can only rehash stuff together so many times before we get frustrated, because we can't answer what's bothering us. Right? And so this is just the start. And in my mind,
this is like 6 months in.
And in my mind, I'm going, oh, well, on TV, they kind of whip through this. Like, you're grasping for anything to compare it to. Here we are 8 years later, and it's still not done.
Right.
So my mindset back then is, why does this stuff take so long? Why can't we hurry up and do this? What is taking you so long? I'm bothering our poor attorneys. Like, why? And they're like, it just takes time. You just have to let the system work. And I feel bad for our attorneys, because I was like the raging lunatic mother. I'm sure they had that same opinion. Like, oh, we don't even want to talk to her on the phone. She's a pain. I just needed answers. Tom needed answers. We needed to know that all this hell that we're going through and not being able to talk to anybody is worth it. because we were lonesome. It was a very lonesome place, and we can't tell people. And even if you think you trust somebody, one slip up, we couldn't take that chance.
Right.
And it just, and then there's like all these accident reconstructionist people that they hired to come in right away, and you know, questions, and we had to answer questions, and we couldn't get Morgan's phone back. Um, Ugh. That was very disheartening, because we all know that with kids, their life is their phone. Their photos are in it, their Snapchat, their Twitter or X or Facebook or whatever.
Even back in 17.
This is
Yeah.
their life. And nobody would give us back her phone. They kept saying it's part of the investigation. Part of the investigation. And it's like, stop it, just give us the phone back, you know. I don't even know. It took years to get her phone back, and and when it come back, they had deleted most of it. That was very hard, because we had, you know, there were all those candid photos of her with her friends, and, you know, and let me tell you, for those of you that think your phone is secure and nobody can hack into it, government included, that's bullshit. I'm straight up going to tell you right now, they pulled down everything off her phone, every transcript from every chat, every text message, every app, every photo, every phone call, every metric that there was on that phone. Someone way smarter than me got it all off that phone. So that was so hurtful, because that was another piece of Morgan that we lost.
Right.
Even the cloud, I recovered some stuff, but, you know, they took away another piece of her from us. You know, and this seemed to just be the recurring theme to Tom and I, was every chance that they could, the government, this, you know, all the different agencies, they were just chipping away at her worth. They were chipping away at what her life meant. So that was, you know, to the legal people and whatever, the cops, everybody, it was just a phone and it was just photos. But to us, it was a lifeline to the Morgan before the accident. And that's something we can never, you know, we can't get it back. You know, and we get told, well, don't live in the past. But this was so traumatic that the past will never leave us. It may soften, but this past will never leave, you know. You know, we're finding out a lot more, and as the legal piece is going on, you know, and at the time they're talking to every single person that was involved and getting depositions, and you're realizing more and more, like, all is not what it seemed in the beginning, right? And not only are they going to focus on Morgan and her life pre-accident, but we're also going to focus on every single person involved in this and their history.
Okay. So you're talking
The officers.
the officers. What about the other kids?
Them too. Everybody's getting scrutinized.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's life is under a microscope at this point.
Yeah. And how much pushback were you getting from the other families specifically? I know very little about with the officers, but with the kids.
The other passengers' family, we actually became very dear friends with them. We're still friends with them. Our, I talked to the other passenger. He always is checking in on Morgan to see how she's doing. So that relationship is really good.
Did all three survive?
Yes.
To today. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
to today, all three have survived.
Okay.
Um,
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler. Um, the driver's family, we maintained a very long distance away from them.
Well, it's probably best after what they pulled at the hospital.
Right. After what was happened at the hospital, we couldn't trust them. We didn't know what details were going to come out. Now, mind you, the attorneys are still investigating. We're still getting reports back, and this is not fast. Nothing is fast. I tell you what, whoever said that we as American citizens are entitled to a fair and speedy trial, I think they were smoking something, because this has been anything but fair and speedy.
Because so the accident happened in 17 and you filed that intent to sue after a few months or a few weeks. And then when did you actually file
I
paperwork?
think the actual lawsuit got filed like in 19.
Okay.
And then it's all this garbage of back and forth and back and forth and, discoveries. And I don't even know the words for all of it, but it's so much back and forth. And then we finally went to trial in 24.
Say
In 2024, we finally got to
almost
go
2
to
years
trial.
ago. Yep.
We got the ruling finally in 2025. And then the appeal came.
Yep.
But that's more for
Right.
another day.
That's future.
But, so
And it's still not settled today.
as of today, it's still not settled.
Right.
So this process is just grueling, and you don't trust anybody. You get these reports, you get depositions, and what they're saying just makes your toenails curl, because they're just like, well, I was doing my job and I was this, and everyone's trying to paint the other people as the bad person,
Right.
right? And then the lies come in. You should never lie, because the truth always comes out, right? And especially if there's witnesses, because everybody's going to have a different take on the story, right?
Right.
Because that's your reality. Your version is your reality. My reality is I hated everybody who was involved in this. I thought everyone was lying, which at some point some of them all were. And, my reality is every one of them should have been fired immediately. But everybody went back to work the next day like nothing had happened. Even the officer that re-engaged the pursuit, the officer that caused this, same guy, went back to work the next day like nothing happened. So as we're getting this discovery, we're finding out that this particular officer had been let go from the sheriff's office for bad behavior, wrongdoing, whatever it was. Went to work as a tribal officer, didn't do what he was supposed to there, caused this horrific accident. People are investigating now. So he quits and then goes to work for the city. So my question is, how does this work? Like, how does this merry-go-round work? Like, if you're fired for bad behavior, whatever that behavior was, or your indiscretions, or whatever the termination reason was, how do you end up here and then here?
Right. Seems like a flawed system.
a very flawed system. And where's the background checks? Where is the discussion from agency 1 to agency 2 or agency 1 and 3? Like, why is nobody saying, hey, this seems to be a round robin thing here. What's going on?
Right.
Why would nobody just check that out?
Right. Did you ever get answers for that?
No.
They just needed a body, so they hired.
They needed a body, so they hired him. Pretty sad state of affairs.
Is he still a police officer now?
At that point in time, yes. We'll discuss the future later.
Okay.
Thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it. We love hearing from you guys, so keep the comments and the questions coming for us.
Yes. Love the questions. Please subscribe. Go to www.givemorgan.org or visit me at my real estate website, realtorcraigbertrand.com. And we always want your questions, comments, like, and share wherever you listen or watch.
Thank you.
Thank you.